Oh, good morning, everybody. Granny Gear here for Old Guy and a Bike. Today is kind of a special day because I am announcing a new bike project, and we all know how fun that is. Stay tuned. Before I get started though, I wear all these different shirts I get from the different trade shows and whatnot, but this one, isn't that just really cool? This is a series that Enduro Bearing does. They always have some like kind of fancy car or something special. Last year it was like a VW bus. Now this year, I don't even know what kind of car this is, but people go, that is a cool shirt. And I agree. All right, it is New Bike Project Day, and that's always exciting. Half the fun of getting a new bike is thinking about it, planning for it, imagining how it would be, etc., etc. And today, I'll be talking about something that's been in the works for a while and is just now really starting to come together. Now, to begin with, this project bike is not for yours truly. No, it's for Mrs. Granny Gear. But here's the premise. Assemble a bike that you could take anywhere and do most anything that you would want to do if you were traveling outside of the extremes. So, for instance, Mrs. Granny Gear and I plan, now that I am a retired gentleman of leisure, we plan on doing a little bit more traveling in the future here, loading up bikes, maybe the dog, maybe even the dog trailer, and heading off into places we haven't been and riding bikes. Now, the thing is, we don't typically do a lot of mountain biking these days, so we don't need that. And if we're going to have the dog trailer and be a little more casual about it, we're probably not going to be doing heavy, fast-paced road riding. So somewhere in the middle, a bike that would do everything else fairly well, that might be the perfect bike. And you know what we call that? Well, we kind of call that an all-road bike, don't we? And so it made sense for me to put together an all-road bike that we could use for our travels. Maybe we even want to get on an airplane, box up a bike, and fly someplace. Yes, that could be a lot of fun. So what would that bike look like if I were going to do that? Okay, so there's that. There's the second part of this, however. Now, you see behind me, this bright yellow bicycle, that is Mrs. Granny Gear's primary road bike. It is a BMC e-road bike. It's the, hang on, give me a second. Road Machine 01 Amp X. I can never remember that word salad of BMC speak. And this came about mostly because of a mild heart condition she has, and so for her to be able to go out and do a longer fast-paced ride, she just can't push her heart that hard without potentially causing herself some issues. And so this is cardiologist approved, and it has been a great bike to have. Now, here's the thing. She doesn't always want to ride this. If she's going to go out with some of her girlfriends and they just want to do a very casual ride to coffee, maybe she just wants to go on the bike path for the day. She's not worried about the pace of the group, etc., etc. Well, why drag this around, right? Why take this out? Well, maybe I just want to go pedal an analog bike for the day. So, this bike project will do two things. It'll be her analog bike. It'll be for those days where she doesn't really need the e-bike, maybe doesn't want the e-bike, and can have something she can ride. Now, kind of two parts to the story. There's an analog bike from Mrs. Granny Gear and a travel bike for her and for both of us at the point where we want to go and be able to use a bike over a wide variety of conditions. Now then, you start with the heart of the bike. We got to start with the frame, don't we? You always start with the frame. You had to think to yourself, if it's going to be an all-road bike, I want to have at least 38, maybe a 40 millimeter tire capacity. Now, we could have used a gravel bike. There are certainly some gravel bike frames out there that would be qualified for this. But in this case, I think this all-road approach is not a bad approach because I would say probably 90% of the time we'll be using this more as a road bike than a gravel bike. And so I think we're going to slide the scale a little bit over to all-road, okay? But you know what? Plenty of gravel bikes that this would have been just, a really good start to the project. What do I want it made of? Well, of course, I don't really think I want it to be made of carbon. And I say that because I want it to be able to be knocked around a little bit. Mrs. Granny Gear has had two of her lady friends have their bikes damaged to the point of repair or replacement from flying. They crushed the carbon bikes and frames. That's not good. If you're going to put it in the back of an RV, or you're going to put it in the back of a camper or a truck or something, I just don't want to have to worry about it. And since we're not caring about winning the Tour de France with these things, carbon is not necessarily the best choice, in my opinion. So that means it needs to be a metal bike. It could be steel, aluminum, titanium. All those things, I think, would be a really good choice for this type of application. Here it is, this lovely little piece of shiny metal. Isn't this pretty? This is a 2023 model Arty. In other words, all-road tie. That's the Arty. And that brings me to Turner Bikes. Now, you know, David Turner and I, we have a good relationship. He's not a sponsor. I don't get things for free. But on the other hand, he gives me some really good prices if some deals come up, and I really appreciate that. And I love riding his bikes. I like the way the guy thinks. I've talked to him a lot. We think a lot alike. He's a very practical, very smart guy. The bikes he makes I love the Cyclosis gravel bike. He's got a new one out that I'm thinking at some point I might have to trade up, because I think there's some nice improvements he's made. He's always improving every year, trying to make it better. And the right deal came along, and I said, I think that's going to work out just fine for me and Mrs. Grainiger. One of the reasons also the Arty appealed to me, back up a little bit, is I started looking at the geometry of it, right? It's within fractions of millimeters of this BMC. And she really fits the BMC very, very well, much better than her Trek Amonda SLR, which was her previous road bike that I'm stealing parts from. I knew that I wanted to get as close as I could to this because she just really likes riding this bike. It's a great fit for her. Well, the Arty, when I started looking at the charts, it had, I think there was just a few millimeters at most in one dimension that was somewhat different, but I could work around that, and I thought, wow, that's a good fit. Now, it also has plenty of room for at least a 38. I think I can get a mild 40 in there too, so all-road wise, it has the tire capacity I need, and the geometry is that nice middle-of-the-road all-road where you can do most things on it and be pretty much okay. It's not really heavy, and you are not going to hurt this if you're traveling with it or knocking it around, and that, in my mind, for this project, that is a huge, huge plus. These are some Hunt Carbon 30s. Now, I think they call them something different then, but back then, this is an old wheel set. This wheel set, it's got to be, I bought these from Hunt when they first started the company. They didn't even have American distribution then. These came from the UK. I don't know how many thousands of miles these wheels have on them. We've moved them from bike to bike since then, at least 2 different bikes, maybe 3 at this point. And they've just been super solid. Now, this is Grainiger. She's not a wheel punisher, but she puts miles on her bike. And if things were going to start falling apart, I think they would have by now. I did have to re-bearing the hubs. I put some Enduro bearing ceramic. They're XD, what are they, XD15? Is that what they are? Geez, I'm getting old. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll put it up on the screen. But they're super ceramic bearings that are really, really, really the real deal in a ceramic bearing, not like some of the other ones out there that talk about being a ceramic bearing. But here's the problem. It had the wrong free hub on it. It was Shimano, because we were running Shimano shifting parts on her Ultegra. And I thought, yeah, but I'm going to use SRAM drivetrain, which I'll get to in a second. What to do, because these wheels, as old as they are, with some kind of Taiwanese hub, there's no way I'm going to get a free hub body for this. Or am I? Well, Hunt, they came through, and I reached out to them. I sent them some pictures of the wheels and the hubs and everything, and I said, hey, you know, can I get an XDR? Is that too much to ask? Do you have a free hub for this? By golly, they did. And they sent that to me for the project at no charge. I appreciate that from Hunt. But even if I'd had to buy it, the point is not that it was free, but that I could get it. They have a really good a way of keeping lots and lots of parts around for even their older wheels. And you know what? That's nice to be able to, well, reuse a project, reuse an expenditure like this that I made once, and now I'm just continuing to use it until eventually it wears out. And if it ever starts breaking spokes or nipples or something, man, I'll just have these rims rebuilt on another set of hubs, and Bob's your uncle. So, nice set of carbon Hunt 30 millimeter deep wheels, and I think these are 21, 22 wide, something like that. So, not as wide as things are these days. This is some Schwalbe 30s. What are these? The Pro ones, and these were on Armada. I think these will be just fine, and I would probably slip something on there for those rougher days, like a set of WTB Vulpin 36s for those all-road days. And I think these are going to do just fine. Thanks, Hunt. You guys rock. Isn't this pretty? Well, this is the shiny end of the drivetrain. This is a Garbaruk. In this case, it's a 1052 Eagle 12-speed mountain bike cassette. Isn't that beautiful in that 3D violet or purple? I guess it's just purple. Mrs. Granny Gear, she likes purple. So I think that's going to look pretty nice on this little Turner titanium frame. Now, I'm probably going to use a 1050 cassette, not this 52, but I have this just in case we need lower gearing. I think a 1050 is going to be just fine. I'll probably be running a 42 tooth front chainring, and I'll be doing that on a crank I have here. This is a Praxis crank. This is one of their old Zionte cranks, and these are just nice. This is just a simple aluminum crank. You can see this is a double, but Mrs. Granny Gear uses a 165 crank, and so this is a 165. I bought this for something, never used it, but you can convert this very easily to a single ring crank because Praxis does sell 1x chain rings for this 110 BCD, and so that's slick. So this will go just fine. I ordered the bottom bracket and the chain ring for that from Praxis, and they gave me a very nice price for the project. I appreciate that. And so between the Garbaruk cassette and that crank running a 42 and this in a 1050, I think that'll be all the gearing we'll need for most situations. And you know what, if it isn't, I can always adjust. And I'll probably use SRAM Rival shifters in the access. We'll definitely do the electronic stuff. That's just been great for us. I am waiting for the new Force. New Red was released, and that had the better braking system with less force required to get high-level braking. And for a small-handed person like Mrs. Granny Gear or someone with weak hands, that's an advantage, especially if you're braking from the hoods. And so I think for now I'm not going to spend for Force, although I like the weight savings for this bike. I think I'm going to do Rival. We'll see. I pillaged some other parts off of the Amanda SLR. I got these little Bontrager carbon bars, and I think these will do just fine. I think these are 40 millimeters wide, something like that. Fairly shallow drop. And I think she never uses the drops anyway. She always rides from the hubs. I think these will be just fine for the project. And of course, if you're going to have purple, you better have purple bottle cages. All right, as soon as UPS and FedEx hit my doorsteps, I'll be starting to put some parts on this bike. And I'm excited. I think it's going to be a sweet, sweet little frame. And if it works out, if the whole bike works out for her, and I think it's going to, then I'm basically at some point going to duplicate this type of project. I'll probably even use the same frame. That'll have to be a newer one because I don't think he's got any larges sitting around in his garage anymore. And we'll do another one for me. I'll probably duplicate things pretty much in the drivetrain because I think that's going to work out well, but we shall see. And then we'll have a pair of bikes that we can take most of the places we're going to want to go for most of the riding that we're going to want to do, and I think they're going to be just fine. Well, thanks to all the vendors who made this project much more approachable. Hunt sent me out that little free hub part at no charge. Very much appreciate that. And kudos to them again for just even having that part available. Like, that goes a long way to showing their dedication to customer support of the products they've sold, even if it was 5 years ago. So that was pretty awesome. And thanks to the good pricing from Turner Bikes, of course, and Garbaruk and Praxis. You guys, thank you very much for helping support my vision for this, and I think the bike, when it gets together, is going to be a really sweet little ride. All right, that's it for now, guys. Not much for this Friday video, I know, but it's been really, really hot here. I'm just kind of in between things that I'm not quite ready to really roll out, and so for now, That's what I got. Hope you guys have a great week and or weekend, and wherever you are, go ride your bikes.